What if Earth was designed, not assembled like furniture or stamped out of cosmic parts, but shaped intentionally or by some deeper rule, so that life could happen here? That's the question we'll hold gently tonight. No arguments, no hot takes, just a calm walk through what makes our world feel curiously tuned. Begin with the ordinary. Morning light warming a room without burning it. Air that nourishes lungs you didn't have to engineer. Water that arrives on time, clear, tasteless, reliable. Step outside, plants coax sunlight into food. Animals navigate rhythms they never learned. Gravity keeps everything from floating away, and the temperature range sits inside the narrow band where blood stays liquid and oceans don't boil. You could shrug and say, of course it feels right. We evolved in what works. That's true. But it's also fair to pause at how many layers cooperate. The star we orbit is unusually steady for billions of years. Earth sits in the temperate band where liquid water can exist. The planet spins fast enough to spread heat and slow enough to avoid chaos. A magnetic field shields us from radiation. A big moon steadies our axial tilt and stirs tides that shape coasts and cycles. None of this proves design. Patterns aren't the same as purpose. Still, the stack of just right features is interesting. So we'll explore as observers, not jurors, collecting coincidences, naming feedback loops, admiring math that shows up inside leaves and galaxies. We'll ask what might change if the world were arranged with intent, and what would remain even if it wasn't. Because either way, the fact that we can notice, compare, and wonder already tells us something remarkable. The universe not only supports life, it invites understanding. Start with the famous dartboard, the habitable zone. Around stars there's a ring where water can stay liquid at the surface, and Earth rides comfortably in that lane. Our sun helps. It's long-lived and unusually calm compared to flare-happy red dwarfs and short-fused blue giants. But distance isn't everything. Orbit shape matters. Ours is nearly circular, so solar input doesn't swing wildly. Seasons happen, not whiplash. Tilt matters. About 23.5 enough to mix climates and drive migrations without flipping the planet between deep freeze and oven. Rotation matters. 24 hours spreads day and night in manageable doses, so surfaces don't scorch by noon and freeze by dawn. Invisible pieces matter too. The dynamo in Earth's liquid outer core generates a magnetic field that deflects charged particles. Without it, the atmosphere thins and DNA takes a beating, as Mars learned. Atmosphere composition matters. Roughly 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, a dusting of argon, water vapor, and trace gases. Too much oxygen, and the world would burn. Too little, and complex metabolism stalls. Too much CO2 and Venus hemons. Too little, and Earth becomes an ice marble. Stack enough of these constraints, and the window narrows. Some people wave the anthropic card, of course it looks tuned. If it weren't, we wouldn't be here to comment. That's logically fine, but emotionally unsatisfying. Because even inside that logic, we keep finding balances that feel engineered by restraint. The safer move is modest. No leaps to a designer, no dismissal of the wonder. Just note how many dials sit mid-range, how feedbacks damp excess, how stability makes time, and time makes complexity. Whether that's intent or natural selection writ across planets, the outcome is the same. A system that holds long enough for stories like this one. Humans are magnetized by symmetry and pattern. We like faces that mirror, flowers that spiral, shells that follow curves you can sketch with a compass. That preference doesn't prove anything, but it's a clue. The shapes that look right often turn out to be efficient. Branches split to deliver nutrients. Rivers fork to move water with minimal energy. Lungs repeat their design to pack surface area into a chest. Fractals, spirals, hexagons. They aren't stamps, they're solutions. And the solutions recur across scales, from snowflakes to galaxies. Biology, too, leans into precision. Proteins fold with improbable reliability into machines that catalyze reactions, millions of times faster than raw chemistry. Enzymes fit their targets like practiced hands. Molecular motors walk along cellular tracks to deliver cargo on schedule. DNA doesn't just store information, it schedules and edits it, turning genes on and off depending on place, stage, and need. Evolution explains the how: variation, selection, inheritance. No blueprints required. Yet even with that mechanism, coordination can feel uncanny. The code is compacted into nuclei with exquisite filing systems. Repair crews patrol for copying errors, feedback loops steer growth and halt it. When damage is detected, you don't need an architect to get there. But the emergent architect is hard to ignore. Meanwhile, telescopes keep finding exoplanets by the thousands, and yet Earth's combo-stable star, big moon, plate tectonics, persistent oceans, protective fields still looks uncommon. Maybe rare is exactly what probability predicts. Maybe there are countless Earth-likes we haven't resolved yet. Either way, we're left with an invitation: follow the structure wherever it leads. If the universe produces order through rules alone, those rules are worth reverence. If intention rides along with them, that's worth reverence too. Zoom out from space to time. Life didn't just need the right ingredients, it needed sequencing. Earth formed in a busy neighborhood. Impacts were frequent, heat was brutal, chemistry simmered. Then the violence slackened enough for crust to solidify and oceans to gather. Volcanoes breathed out gases, lightning and minerals brewed complexity. Sunlight fed early metabolisms. Crucially, the relative calm lasted, not perfectly, but long enough for cells to learn, combine, and specialize. Plate tectonics recycled carbon. The magnetic field stayed on. The sun didn't tantrum. Asteroids came, yes, and one ended the reign of dinosaurs, but the system didn't reset to zero, it pivoted. That's a theme. Earth absorbs shocks by rerouting, turning disasters into new starting lines. Call that luck, resilience, or design by constraint. It functions like a metafilter. Many paths collapse, a few remain. Life pours through the surviving channels and elaborates. People explain this landscape differently. Some see providence, others see statistics, others see inevitability across infinite trials. Our project here isn't to referee, it's to notice that the road from molten rock to thinking minds crosses narrow bridges, persistent liquid water, long spans of climate stability, oxygen arriving not too early and not too late, multicellular cooperation, social intelligence, language. Each milestone depends on prior ones. Luff the order and the tower wobbles. When systems keep landing in viable ranges despite randomness, two readings stay available. 1. Given enough time and space, rare things happen somewhere. 2. Rare things were favored, subtly or explicitly. Neither answer breaks the wonder. Both tell you to look harder at thresholds, because thresholds are where purposes, natural or chosen, reveal themselves. Let's open the ground. The crust is a thin skin riding a convecting mantle, broken into plates that wander, collide, and dive. Without that motion, continents would stagnate, mountains would grind down, nutrients would lock in place, and the long carbon silicate thermostat would stall. Too much motion, though, and the surface would be constantly remade, never stable enough for forests or civilizations. Earth sits in the lively middle, dynamic but not deranged. Weathering of fresh rock draws down CO2, volcanoes add it back. Ocean chemistry negotiates peace between the two. That cycling sets climate on million-year horizons, giving life room to experiment. Zoom to soil. Part mineral, part air, part water, part rot. Adjust the mix and roots either drown or choke. There's leeway, but not infinite. Plants and soils co-shape each other. Fungi braid into roots. Bacteria trade nutrients for sugar. Insects pollinate the future. A seed waits for cues in the dark, then chooses a direction: down for anchoring, up for light. No committee, just chemistry tuned by success across time. Meanwhile, the pantry of elements: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, keeps showing up as the winning kit. Carbon's bonding habits, right long, flexible backbones, water's oddities, will get there, act like a universal courier. Nitrogen feeds proteins, phosphorus builds energy currency. Some of this is obvious in hindsight. Much of it is oddly convenient. The key point isn't perfection, it's sufficiency with margin. Systems aren't flawless. They are forgiving. Feedback trims excess. Redundancy buys time. Cooperations bloom out of competition. Whether that looks like design depends on what you expect. Design to mean blueprints and rulers, or rules and room. Water deserves a spotlight. 3 atoms, endless leverage. It stays liquid across the temperature swings Earth actually has. It carries heat without spiking in temperature, thanks to an unusually high specific heat. It climbs thin tubes in trees by clinging to itself and to walls. It expands when it freezes. So ice floats and lakes don't freeze solid from the bottom up. It dissolves more than any common liquid, turning dirt into soil, rock into river, chemistry into metabolism. All of that flows from geometry. The angle between hydrogens and oxygen creates polarity. Polarity enables hydrogen hodins. Hydrogen bonds build a social life among molecules. Change the angle and everything shifts. Freezing point, density curve, solvent power. Life would need different tricks, or none would work. Water's optical honesty matters too. It's transparent to the light plants use. So oceans host photosynthesis. It filters harsh ultraviolet more than helpful wavelengths, a natural sunscreen you don't have to smear on. Earth didn't just get water, it kept it at the surface. Right gravity to hold an atmosphere, right pressure to keep liquid from boiling into space, right greenhouse balance to avoid a runaway freeze or boil. The hydrologic cycle, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, moves nutrients, carves valleys, refills aquifers, and keeps continents from becoming brittle museums. Oceans buffer climate, absorbing summer's heat and gifting it back in winter. Storms redistribute energy poleward. Clouds shade, then rain. Snow stores water in mountain banks for spring release. Every creature you meet is a temporary arrangement of water with minerals and stories dissolved inside. Is that design? It's at least disciplined. A handful of parameters that taken together act like a quiet covenant between physics and life. Patterns keep repeating. Rivers, lace like trees, turn sideways. Lightning forks like roots of fire. Coastlines reveal more detail the closer you look, a sign of fractals at work. Sunflowers arrange seeds in spirals close to the golden angle, packing maximum future in minimum space. Bees build with hexagons, because that's the sweet spot between strength and thrift. But lava columns and bubble foams reach for hexagons too. Same math, different makers. These aren't metaphysical hints, they're constraints acting as sculptors. When matter and energy chase efficiency under pressure, certain forms solve the problem best, so they recur. That recurrence can feel like a signature. It might simply be convergence, solutions rediscovered across contexts, because physics rhymes with itself. Or it might be more provocative. Perhaps the laws are not just permissive, but suggestive, nudging matter toward arrangements that distribute, connect, and grow. The cool part is how often our sense of beauty aligns with those solutions. We decorate with symmetry, repeat with rhythm, spiral our art and architecture. Maybe we copy nature. Maybe our brains evolved to prefer what works. Either way, aesthetics and effectiveness shake hands. Mathematics sits in the middle as translator equations that describe branches also describe blood vessels. The same differential forms govern tides and traffic. It's tempting to say blueprint, but blueprints are static. Earth's patterns are alive, revising as they go. The better metaphor may be grammar, a set of rules that allows infinitely many sentences, some graceful, some clumsy, all possible within bounds. You don't need an author for grammar to be real. You do need a grammar for meaning to travel. On this planet, meaning travels constantly, embodied as structure. Open the cell, and you find choreography. DNA stores a 4-letter script. RNA copies the relevant lines. Ribosomes translate those lines into proteins that fold into shapes with jobs. The folding isn't random. Chemistry prefers certain positions. Chaperone proteins help stubborn chains find their correct forms. Enzymes lower reaction barriers, so life runs at room temperature instead of a blast furnace. Molecular motors shuttle cargo along microtubule highways. Proton turbines spin to mint cellular energy. Every second, billions of events happen in order, with checks to catch errors and alarms to call for help. Evolution maps the path here without requiring foresight. Tinker, test, keep what works, repeat for eons. Still, the final ensemble has properties we associate with engineered systems: modular parts, layered control, redundancy, graceful degradation, feedback. The genome isn't just a parts list, it's a scheduler. Most of the code isn't protein recipes at all, it's traffic lights and dimmer switches, deciding when, where, and how. The nucleus is library and operating system. The cytoplasm is factory and road network. The membrane is sensor wall and customs gate. The wonder isn't that this could emerge, it's that it does. Reliably, every sapolized egg becomes a person, a pine or a pigeon. If that feels like design, it might be because our minds trained by tools recognize architecture. If it feels like emergence, it might be because we've watched selection sculpt complexity from chaos in labs and simulations. Both views can be true about the same thing. There's a universal accent to life. Almost all organisms use the same genetic code. Triplets of bases, codons, refer to 20 standard amino acids, with redundancy that cushions the effect of typos. Some codon swaps change a protein only slightly, some act like punctuation. Start here, stop there. That near universality hints at a common origin. Life settled early on a code that's both robust and flexible, then carried it forward everywhere. Is it the only workable code? Probably not. Synthetic biologists have crafted alternative letters and expanded alphabets, but the natural one is impressively error-tolerant and expressive, like a language that's easy to learn and hard to break. The regulation layers are where the software metaphor tighten. Enhancers from far away boost a gene's voice, silencers hush it. Proteins read the marks and decide what transcript gets priority. Epigenetic tags remember stress and diet and development, changing expression without altering the letters beneath. Cells negotiate like cities, local decisions under city-wide constraints. Humans didn't invent this language, but we've learned to read and edit it. CRISPR as a cursor, polymerases as printers, sequencers as scanners. Do functions imply intention? Not necessarily. Meaning here is functional. A sequence means what it causes to happen. But even on that austere definition, DNA is a language that runs reality on wet computers. That's enough to keep the question open. Did evolution discover a grammar embedded in physics, or did physics arrive dressed as a grammar because grammar is what stable complexity requires? Either way, the code works astonishingly well, spelling out eyes, wings, memories, and this very doubt. A planet needs a skin. Earth's is air, thin, dynamic, selective, mostly nitrogen, a calm filler, plenty of oxygen, energetic but kept in check, a flicker of carbon dioxide and methane, tiny in amount, huge in effect. Early on, the air was harsh, volcanic gases, and no free oxygen. Microbes figured out photosynthesis, dumped oxygen as waste, and changed everything. Iron rusted out of oceans, life that couldn't stand oxygen dwindled, metabolisms that used it bloomed, multicellularity followed. That great oxygenation was both catastrophe and opportunity. Typical Earth. Greenhouse gases trap heat. Without them, mean temperature plummets. With too many, the thermostat jams. For most of Earth's history, feedbacks have kept the mix in livable bounds. Rocks, weather, and draw down CO2, volcanoes and fires add it back. Forests and oceans inhale and exhale in seasonal rhythms. Higher up, a thin ozone layer swallows UV that shreds DNA. It forms naturally from sunlight splitting oxygen and recombining into O3. It can be wounded by industrial chemicals. When we noticed the wound, we stopped making the chemicals, and the layer began to heal. A rare case where intention clearly altered a planetary variable for the better. The atmosphere moves heat from equator to poles via winds and currents, braided with the ocean. Jet streams steer storms, monsoons water, continents deserts, and rainforests. lock arms through global circulations. Most of the mass sits in the first dozen kilometers above the ground. Everything we breathe, every cloud we watch, every bird we've ever seen, thin, but enough to lift wings, carry seeds and sing sound, fragile, but resilient, until we test it too hard. Rhythm is the scaffolding of life. Earth turns once every 24 hours, and every creature ticks to that beat. Plants open pores by day and close them by night. Hormones rise and fall. Genes pulse on cycles called circadian clocks that keep running even in constant darkness. A year is a lap around the sun. Combined with tilt, it writes seasons onto latitude. Animals migrate, hibernate, molt, and breed by those cues. Lakes overturn, forests flower, cultures harvest and celebrate. On longer scales, subtle wobbles in Earth's spin and orbit, Milankovitch cycles, nudge ice ages in and out. The moon slows our rotation grain by grain, lengthening days by milliseconds per century. Solar activity waxes and wanes on 11-year cycles. Inside cells, protein gears measure time and trigger repairs when radiation risk is lowest. Humans overlay this with symbolic time calendars, clocks, work weeks, miniature reflections of cosmic mechanics. These timings don't demand a designer any more than a pendulum does. But timing is what turns possibility into habit. If days were twice as long, photosynthesis would feast then starve. If years were erratic, crops would gamble and lose. If tilt wandered chaotically, climate would flip faster than lineages could adapt. Here again, Earth sits inside a convenience zone. Enough variation to challenge and catalyze evolution. Not so much that everything rips. We built language and memory on that reliability. We promise tomorrow because the sky keeps its appointment. Whether you call that a gift of chance or a feature of plan, it's the ground we stand on while we wonder. The moon looks obvious because it's always there, but it's weird. For a rocky planet, having a satellite that big is uncommon. The leading story says a Mars-sized body clipped the young Earth. Debris circled and gathered. The moon cooled and locked one face toward us. The accident had to be Goldilocks gentle. Too hard and Earth shatters. Too soft and nothing sticks. Wrong angle and you get a ring, not a companion. Out of that narrow target came a stabilizer. The moon damps wild swings in Earth's tilt, so seasons drift but don't crash. Its gravity lifts oceans into tides that pump coastal ecosystems, move nutrients, and may have nurtured early chemistry in wet-dry cycles along shores. Tidal friction also slows our spin, stretching an ancient 6-hour day into the 24-hour rhythm we know. Climate and biology, quietly reshaped by a faraway rock. Many species key behavior to moonlight. Coral reef cities coordinate mass spawning on precise lunar nights. Predators and prey adjust tactics to brightness. The moon even gives us eclipses, so clean they look staged. A temporary coincidence of sizes and distances that will fade as it drifts away, 4 centimeters per year. Could complex life thrive without a large moon? Maybe, but a steadier tilt, reliable tides, and a nudge on day length probably helped. In the exoplanet census, big moons around Earth-like worlds seem rare so far. Data is young, but the odds don't look generous. Whether you read that as luck or layout, the effect is the same. Our nights hum to a second metronome, and that rhythm threads through climate, coast, and culture. The sun sits at the center of this arrangement, steady enough to be taken for granted. It's not the biggest or brightest star type. Those burn out too quickly. Our sun is a G-type main sequence star, fusing hydrogen at a controlled pace for billions of years. Its light falls in the sweet spot for photosynthesis, strong in the visible range, not overloaded with sterilizing ultraviolet. The spectrum happens to match the absorption peaks of chlorophyll, which seems less like coincidence when you remember that pigments evolved to use what was available. Still, if the sun was slightly hotter, its radiation might strip atmospheres more easily. Slightly cooler, and Earth's habitable zone would shrink inward, perhaps too close for orbital stability. Its output is not perfectly constant. Solar cycles bring small swings, but the fluctuations are mild compared to many stars that throw tantrums of radiation. Sunspots, flares, and coronal mass ejections do occur, but Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere buffer most of their harm. On cosmic scales, the Sun is in a quiet suburb of the galaxy. We orbit far from the crowded, dangerous center where supernovae and black holes stir hazards. Our solar system's layout adds more protection. Giant planets like Jupiter act as cosmic goalkeepers, deflecting or capturing comets that might otherwise slam into Earth more often. The Sun's stability is not permanent. It will brighten over the next billion years, but in human terms, it's a long lease. This constancy allows complexity to layer over time. Civilizations need predictable planting seasons. Ecosystems need stable energy input. Oceans need temperatures that don't swing too far. Whether you frame it as good fortune or deliberate calibration, the Sun is a partner in the long project of life, and its reliability sets the tempo for everything else. Jupiter is often called Earth's bodyguard, but that nickname undersells the story. At over 300 times Earth's mass, it dominates the solar system's gravitational landscape, sweeping up stray comets and asteroids before they can cross our orbit. Its presence may have reduced the frequency of catastrophic impacts, though not eliminated them. Enough space debris still arrives to shape life's trajectory. Jupiter's role isn't purely defensive. Its migration, early in the solar system's history, is thought to have stirred up the asteroid belt, delivering water-rich bodies toward Earth. That redistribution might have been essential for our ocean. Saturn joins in the gravitational choreography, its own mass helping to stabilize outer regions and influence asteroid traffic. Even their moons echo the theme of habitability in miniature. Europa and Enceladus hide oceans beneath ice. Titan holds rivers and lakes of methane. Studying them sharpens the question: if life could arise there in such alien chemistry, then Earth's design may simply be one working example among many templates. Yet our particular template is precise. Without the giant planet's early reshuffling, Earth might have been drier, smaller, or pounded too often to sustain complex life. Too many big planets in unstable orbits could have flung Earth into deep space. Here, as elsewhere, balance appears: massive enough neighbors to shield us, not so massive or numerous as to disrupt. Whether this balance is an accident of initial conditions or the outcome of some guiding selection, it has consequences we live every day. We inherit not only sunlight and water, but also the quiet space, use them, carved out by planets we never see except through telescopes. Our safety, partial as it is, comes from forces that never ask permission and never send a bill. Even the galaxy itself plays a role. The Milky Way is vast, yet our solar system sits in a relatively calm spiral arm between more active, dangerous zones. We're far from the galactic center, where radiation is intense, star density is high, and gravitational encounters are more likely to destabilize planetary systems. We orbit the galaxy every 25 million years, passing through regions of varying star density and interstellar material. Some theorists suggest that these passes may influence long-term climate or even extinction cycles, though the evidence remains debated. Our location also provides a clear view of the universe. In a denser stellar region, the sky might be so crowded with bright stars that observing distant galaxies would be harder. For a species curious about origins, this unobstructed view matters. It lets us read the cosmic record in starlight. The galaxy's structure, too, acts as a kind of insurance. Stars, like the Sun, are more common in the disk, where heavy elements are plentiful enough to build rocky planets. In earlier epochs, the galaxy had fewer heavy elements, limiting the potential for worlds like ours. Too many, and planets might be metal-heavy, with thinner atmospheres. Again, there's a middle ground, and we occupy it. Spiral arms are sites of star birth, rich in gas and dust, but also in supernovae, beautiful and dangerous. Our orbit keeps us away from the most crowded sections, passing through arms infrequently, perhaps reducing exposure to cataclysms. Whether you see design or probability, the effect is the same. We live in a neighborhood that is neither too quiet to form us, nor too violent to sustain us. That balance is hard to appreciate day to day, but without it, the rest of the conditions we've explored would never have had time to matter. Consider Earth's interior. The molten iron core spins, generating the magnetic field that shields us from solar wind and cosmic rays. Without it, the atmosphere could be stripped away, as happened to Mars. This magnetic protection also helps maintain climate stability by preserving the layers of air that regulate temperature. The core's heat drives plate tectonics, which in turn recycles carbon and other elements, keeping the surface chemically active. The heat itself is partly left over from Earth's violent birth and partly from radioactive decay, a slow, steady power source lasting billions of years. Too little heat, and tectonics would stop. Too much, and the crust would be constantly remade, preventing long-term stability. The crust's composition also matters. Elements like silicon, oxygen, aluminum, and calcium form minerals that shape landscapes and soils. Trace elements like iodine, zinc, and selenium, though tiny in amount, are vital for biology. Their distribution owes much to ancient processes, asteroid impacts, mantle plumes, and the long chemistry of oceans and atmosphere. Even mountain ranges, born from colliding plates, influence life. They deflect weather systems, create rain shadows, and carve diverse habitats. Rivers flowing from highlands carry nutrients to coasts, feeding marine food webs. In this way, geology writes part of the biological script. None of these systems operates in isolation. The magnetic field links to the core's motion, which links to tectonics, which links to climate. The whole chain runs quietly underfoot, shaping every breath and meal. If you call it design, the blueprint is deep and dynamic. If you call it chance, it's a chance that self-maintains, repairing its own supports as it goes. Either way, the engine room of the planet is a gift most worlds don't have, or don't keep for long. Life also benefits from Earth's chemical generosity. Carbon's versatility allows for complex molecules. Hydrogen and oxygen from water enable energy flow, nitrogen builds proteins, phosphorus powers cells through ATP, sulfur supports critical enzymes. These 6 elements form the core of biochemistry here, but they aren't evenly spread through the universe. Their abundance depends on the life cycle of stars, heavier elements forged in supernovae and neutron star collisions. Our solar system formed after enough of these events seeded the interstellar medium with the raw materials. That timing matters. Too early, and the ingredients wouldn't exist. Too late, and radioactive heat in planets might have dwindled, reducing tectonic activity. The ratios also matter. Too much carbon relative to oxygen, and planets could form with carbon-rich crusts, perhaps limiting water availability. Too little phosphorus, and energy metabolism might be harder to sustain. The fact that these ratios line up for life as we know it could be coincidence or an inevitable outcome of stellar chemistry. Either way, once the ingredients were here, Earth's cycles kept them moving. Weathering releases minerals, rivers carry them to the sea, organisms concentrate and redistribute them. Plate tectonics recycles them into new crust. This constant motion prevents exhaustion of vital resources in any one place. In closed systems, scarcity builds on Earth. Scarcity is delayed or offset by movement. The supply lines are planetary scale, unplanned in any conscious sense but essential to long-term habitability. The very atoms in your body came from stars, rearranged by planetary chemistry into a pattern that thinks about patterns. That recursive loop, matter reflecting on the matter it came from, is one of the most remarkable outcomes of this chemical fortune. Climate stability is another quiet pillar. Over geological timescales, Earth's temperature has been regulated by the carbon silicate cycle, CO2. From volcanoes, warms the planet, warmth accelerates weathering of rocks, weathering locks carbon into minerals, cooling the climate. Cooling slows weathering, letting CO2 build again. This feedback acts like a thermostat, countering gradual changes in solar output. It's not perfect. Ice ages and warm periods still happen, but it keeps conditions within bounds for liquid water. Oceans amplify this stability by storing and redistributing heat, moderating seasonal extremes. Currents like the Gulf Stream transport warmth to higher latitudes, making regions like Western Europe milder than their position suggests. The atmosphere also plays its part. Water vapor, clouds, and greenhouse gases interact in complex ways, some amplifying warming, others reflecting sunlight. Too much of any one factor can push the system into new states, as past hothouse and snowball Earth episodes show, but the baseline resilience is impressive. For over 3 billion years, Despite asteroid strikes, massive volcanism, and shifts in continental layout, the planet has avoided permanent freeze or runaway heat. The biosphere participates in this regulation. Forests, plankton, and wetlands all cycle carbon, influencing climate on both short and long scales. Feedback can be positive too. Life changes the planet, and the planet changes life in a loop that blurs cause and effect. Is such resilience a hallmark of design or an emergent property of complex systems? The answer might not change the practical reality. We live in a climate that forgives small perturbations and recovers from big ones over time. It's this forgiveness that lets civilizations rise, fall, and rise again without erasing the basic conditions that make any of it possible. Diversity itself is a survival feature. Earth's varied environments, oceans, mountains, deserts, forests, ice caps, act as a portfolio of habitats. When one suffers, others may thrive, keeping life's total presence strong. This diversification began early, when continents formed and drifted, creating isolated regions where species could evolve independently. Isolation fosters variety. Variety fosters resilience. A disease that devastates one ecosystem may barely touch another. The same principle applies to genetic diversity within species. Variation gives some individuals a better shot when conditions change. Diversity also fuels innovation in the evolutionary sense. New numbers of traits arise from the mixing of isolated lineages, sometimes producing adaptations no single environment would have demanded. This process has created creatures that can survive in boiling vents, under crushing pressures, in acidic pools, and in frozen deserts. That adaptability means life can rebound from disasters that would seem final. Mass extinctions have reshaped Earth several times, yet life has always refilled the empty niches. The structure of the planet encourages this. Mountains create rain shadows and microclimates. Ocean currents connect distant shores. Tectonics rearranges continents, breaking and remaking migration routes. From a design perspective, this looks like redundancy, multiple ways to keep life going. From an evolutionary perspective, it's simply the outcome of chance interacting with geography and time. Either way, the result is the same, a living world that is hard to fully extinguish. And within that resilience lies the space for complexity, culture, and reflection to emerge, fragile at the local scale, yet astonishingly robust in the grand sweep. Perhaps the most intriguing feature of Earth is that it produces minds capable of noticing all this. Consciousness, in its human form, is a late arrival, but it transforms the planet's meaning. We can measure the tilt of the axis, trace the orbit of the moon, analyze the composition of distant stars, and model the deep past. We can also imagine alternatives, other ways a planet might be, other histories it might have had. This self-awareness is not evenly distributed. It flickers across cultures and times, shaped by need and curiosity. But once present, it feeds back into the system. We can alter rivers, seed clouds, shield against radiation, even change the atmospheric composition. Sometimes for worse, sometimes for better. This is a new kind of design, intentional and rapid compared to geology. It carries the same duality as the rest of our conditions, potential for stability or for collapse. The fact that we can even discuss design versus chance is itself a product of the planet's history. Minds like ours are improbable in the same way as the moon's stabilizing effect or Jupiter's shielding presence, dependent on long chains of events holding within narrow tolerances. Whether this is the flowering of a universal tendency toward complexity or a singular accident is still unknown. What is known is that we now hold the ability to influence the very parameters that shaped us. That's a responsibility embedded in wonder. The more we understand the interplay of factors that sustain Earth, the more capable we are of protecting them or losing them through neglect. Earth's oceans are not simply vast reservoirs of water, they are engines of climate, biodiversity, and chemical cycling. Covering over 70% of the surface, they act as a planetary heat sink, absorbing solar energy and redistributing it through currents. This moderates temperature extremes, making coastal regions more stable than inland areas. Oceans also produce much of the oxygen we breathe, thanks to photosynthetic plankton drifting near the surface. Their biological pump draws carbon from the atmosphere into the deep sea, locking it away for centuries. The salt composition, remarkably constant over millions of years, supports marine life adapted to its chemistry. If the oceans were significantly saltier, many life processes would struggle. If they were fresher, nutrient availability might drop. The ocean floor is a landscape of trenches, ridges, and hydrothermal vents, each home to unique communities. These deep environments are buffered from surface changes, serving as refuges during planetary crises. The tides, powered by the moon's pull, mix coastal waters and nourish estuaries, where land and sea life blend. Oceans even influence the air we feel. Evaporating water fuels clouds and storms, delivering rainfall far from shore. Without this global conveyor, deserts would spread and fertile lands would shrink. The stability of the oceans depends on many of the factors already discussed: temperature ranges, continental placement, atmospheric composition. Disrupt any one, and the delicate balance of currents, salinity, and life could tip. Yet here they are, steady enough to have hosted life almost as long as Earth has existed. Whether you see them as the cradle or bloodstream of the planet, they are more than scenery. They are active participants in the unfolding story of habitability. Earth's atmosphere is a layered guardian. The troposphere hosts weather, recycling water, and moderating temperature. The stratosphere holds the ozone layer, filtering ultraviolet light that would otherwise damage DNA. Above that, thinner layers shield against meteoroids and help dissipate solar wind. This vertical structure isn't inevitable. Planetary atmospheres vary wildly across the solar system. Venus's is crushingly dense with carbon dioxide, Mars's is thin and unable to trap much heat. Earth's composition, roughly 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen, is both breathable and stable. Oxygen at this level supports complex life without posing excessive fire risk. Nitrogen acts as an inert backdrop, preventing wild chemical swings. Trace gases like argon, carbon dioxide, and methane have outsized roles in heat regulation. The atmosphere's pressure also keeps water liquid over a wide temperature range, critical for life's persistence. Winds distribute heat and moisture, while storms redistribute nutrients and shape landscapes. This mobility keeps ecosystems connected, even across oceans. The atmosphere's transparency in the visible range lets sunlight through while absorbing harmful high-energy radiation. Infrared transparency is partial, allowing heat to escape, but trapping enough to maintain warmth, a balance that could easily tip toward icehouse or greenhouse under different conditions. Volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and biological activity have all altered atmospheric composition over time, yet it has returned to a life-supporting state repeatedly. This resilience is partly due to the interaction of geology, oceans, and the biosphere. The atmosphere doesn't merely sit above life, it is part of life's metabolism. Breathing is not just a biological act, it's participation in a planetary scale cycle that links organisms, rocks, and sky in a single system. Freshwater systems, though small compared to oceans, are disproportionately important. Rivers, lakes, and aquifers supply drinking water, irrigate crops, and transport nutrients. Their flow patterns carve landscapes, create fertile floodplains, and connect distant ecosystems. Glaciers act as frozen reservoirs, releasing water gradually through warmer months. In many regions, snowmelt feeds rivers long into the dry season. Wetlands filter pollutants, buffer floods, and host dense biodiversity. The distribution of freshwater is uneven, shaped by rainfall patterns, topography, and climate. Too much water in the wrong place brings floods, too little leads to drought. Yet, for much of human history, many populated regions have enjoyed relatively stable supplies, enough to support agriculture and settlement. Underground aquifers store water on timescales from decades to millennia, smoothing out seasonal variability. This storage is possible because of geological formations that trap and slowly release water, a feature absent in many worlds. Freshwater systems also serve as migration corridors for countless species, linking habitats across continents. Their chemistry varies, but most are dilute enough to support a wide range of life. Minerals carried from weathered rock feed plankton and plants, which in turn feed animals. When fresh water meets the sea in estuaries, the mixing zone becomes one of the most productive environments on Earth. The continuity of these systems depends on climate stability, intact landscapes, and the slow recharge of aquifers. Disruptions can echo for centuries, as seen when rivers are dammed or wetlands drained. Yet the fact that so many remain functional speaks to the broader stability of Earth's water cycle, a stability that owes itself to the same interplay of oceans, atmosphere, and land that underpins life as a whole. The biosphere's interconnections form a web rather than a chain. Plants capture solar energy, turning it into chemical bonds. Herbivores consume plants, carnivores consume herbivores, and decomposers recycle the remains into nutrients. Energy flows one way, but matter cycles endlessly. This network includes not just obvious organisms, but also microbes that mediate essential processes like nitrogen fixation and carbon sequestration. Many of these microbes live in symbiosis with plants or animals, forming invisible partnerships. Coral reefs, for example, are built on the alliance between coral animals and photosynthetic algae. Forest soils depend on fungi to connect tree roots into nutrient-sharing networks. Such cooperation is as vital as competition in keeping ecosystems stable. Diversity in roles ensures that if one pathway falters, another can pick up the slack. Keystone species, though few, have outsized influence: wolves that regulate prey populations, beavers that reshape waterways, pollinators that enable plant reproduction. Remove them, and the system can shift dramatically. Earth's geography encourages this complexity. Mountains, rivers, and climate zones create niches for specialized life forms. Over time, evolution fills these niches, sometimes producing entirely new forms of cooperation. Whether this complexity is a natural outcome of time and variation or a reflection of deeper order is a question without a settled answer. What is clear is that complexity breeds resilience. A system with many interlinked parts can absorb shocks better than a simple one. That resilience, in turn, gives life the time to adapt to slow changes and recover from sudden ones. The biosphere, in all its interwoven detail, is both a product of Earth's conditions and a safeguard for their continuation. Seasonal cycles provide another layer of rhythm to life. Earth's axial tilt of about 23.5 degrees means that sunlight shifts north and south over the year, creating seasons. This variation drives migrations, hibernations, and breeding cycles across countless species. Plants in temperate zones sprout, flower, and fruit in time with warming days, while animals synchronize births to periods of abundance. Seasonal change also redistributes energy. Winter snow reflects sunlight, cooling the planet. Summer vegetation absorbs more, storing energy in biomass. Tropical regions experience wet and dry seasons instead, tied to shifts in atmospheric circulation. The predictability of these cycles allows life to plan in the evolutionary sense. Traits that match the cycle are favored, reinforcing the link between orbit and biology. Human culture has been shaped by seasons as well. Agriculture relies on knowing when to plant and harvest. Festivals often mark solstices and equinoxes. If Earth's tilt were much greater, seasonal extremes could be harsh enough to threaten survival in many regions. Much less, and climatic monotony might limit diversity. The moon's stabilizing effect on the tilt ensures that these patterns change only slowly over geological time. Even ice ages, while disruptive, maintain the same basic cycle, just shifted toward colder averages. Seasons act as both constraint and opportunity, limiting growth in one period, but encouraging preparation in another. This alternation of scarcity and abundance has shaped the strategies of life for millions of years. The cycle is simple in cause, but rich in effect, a cosmic metronome keeping time for the living world. Earth's history is written in extinction and renewal. 5 major mass extinctions have reset the biological stage, clearing dominant groups and opening space for others. The end Permian event nearly erased complex life, The end Cretaceous impact removed the dinosaurs, allowing mammals to diversify. Between these cataclysms, smaller extinctions and environmental shifts continually pruned and reshaped ecosystems. Life's persistence through such upheavals speaks to its adaptability and the planet's ability to restore habitable conditions. Geological processes help tectonics rebuild continents. Volcanism releases gases to the atmosphere, and weathering stabilizes climate. Recovery times vary, millions of years after the worst losses, but the pattern of rebound is consistent. In some cases, extinctions have even accelerated innovation. As survivors adapt, fill vacant niches. From one perspective, this is a brutal lottery. From another, it is a creative churn that drives complexity forward. The fact that Earth has avoided a total sterilization event for billions of years is notable. Many factors, distance from supernovae, protection by the magnetic field, moderation by oceans, contribute to this streak. Mass extinctions remind us that habitability is not constant in every detail. It's a balance that can wobble yet still return to center. In that sense, they are part of the planet's long-term stability, not just interruptions to it. Whether by accident or by some deeper pattern, the cycle of loss and renewal has kept Earth's story moving, never allowing it to settle into permanent stagnation. The deep past also shows that life itself alters the planet. The Great Oxidation Event, over 2 billion years ago, was triggered by photosynthetic microbes releasing oxygen into the atmosphere. This was toxic to many existing organisms, but paved the way for aerobic respiration, which supports higher energy use and complex multicellular life. Plants later amplified oxygen levels, reshaping climate and fueling the growth of large animals. Organisms have also influenced geology. Reefs built by corals and algae create limestone forests, accelerate weathering of rocks. Microbial mats stabilize sediments. Even the composition of soils reflects eons of biological activity. This feedback between life and environment blurs the boundary between passive adaptation and active engineering. It suggests that habitability is not only maintained by external conditions, but also co-created by the inhabitants. This makes Earth different from many lifeless worlds. Its surface and atmosphere are living archives, continually rewritten by the organisms they support. The stability we see today is thus not a static inheritance, but an ongoing negotiation between geology, climate, and biology. Change is inevitable, but the capacity for change to enhance rather than destroy habitability is remarkable. This co-creative process has no central planner, yet it produces results as intricate as any intentional design. It's an open question whether life elsewhere would follow a similar path, but here the partnership between planet and biosphere has been strong enough to last for billions of years. Earth's polar regions, though extreme, are part of the planet's stability system. Ice caps at both poles reflect sunlight, cooling the planet through the albedo effect. Their seasonal growth and retreat influence global sea levels, ocean currents, and weather patterns. Polar ice also locks away vast amounts of fresh water, releasing it slowly over time. Beneath the surface, ice cores hold climate records stretching back hundreds of thousands of years, allowing us to read past cycles of warming and cooling. The cold oceans surrounding Antarctica drive deep water formation, a process that helps circulate heat and nutrients globally. In the Arctic, sea ice shapes ecosystem, providing platforms for species like polar bears and seasonal feeding grounds for migrating birds and marine mammals. The poles are sensitive indicators of change. Shifts in ice extent can signal larger climatic trends. If the poles were warmer, ice might be absent entirely, altering ocean circulation and reducing global climate stability. If they were much colder, ice could advance far into temperate zones, limiting biodiversity and agriculture. The current balance is not static. Ice ages have come and gone, but for much of human history, the poles have been stable enough to keep sea levels within ranges that allow coastal civilizations to flourish. They are, in effect, giant regulators, working quietly at the edges of the map. Volcanism, often seen as destructive, is also a life-sustaining force. Volcanoes release gases like carbon dioxide and water vapor, replenishing the atmosphere over geological time. They create new land, from island chains to fertile volcanic soils rich in minerals. These soils support dense vegetation once weathered and stabilized. Submarine volcanism builds seamounts and alters ocean chemistry, feeding specialized ecosystems around hydrothermal vents. Such vents host unique communities that rely not on sunlight, but on chemical energy. A reminder that life doesn't require our familiar surface conditions. Large eruptions can cause short-term cooling by sending aerosols into the atmosphere, reflecting sunlight while also injecting nutrients into surrounding areas. Too much volcanic activity could smother life under lava or poison the air. Too little would slow the recycling of elements and diminish atmospheric replenishment. Earth's activity falls in a range that sustains a dynamic surface without constant catastrophe. This is tied to the planet's internal heat, maintained by radioactive decay and primordial energy from formation. Over billions of years, volcanism has been both a hazard and a provider, reshaping continents and oceans, enriching soils, and even driving evolutionary shifts by altering climates. In this way, it's another example of Earth's balancing act, destructive in moments, constructive in the long arc. Earth's rotation speed shapes more than the length of our days. A 24-hour cycle provides a rhythm that many organisms have hardwired into their biology. Circadian clocks govern sleep, feeding, and reproduction, synchronized to light and dark. Faster rotation would shorten days, potentially limiting photosynthesis and stressing organisms adapted to longer periods of light. Slower rotation would create extreme temperature differences between day and night, challenging survival without specialized adaptations. Rotation also influences atmospheric circulation and ocean currents through the Coriolis effect, helping distribute heat from equator to poles. Over time, tidal friction with the moon has slowed Earth's spin from shorter days in the past, a gradual change that life has adapted to. This slow shift demonstrates how habitability can evolve. Biological systems adjusting to a changing physical environment. The rotation rate also affects weather. Faster spin tends to produce more storms, slower spin fewer but larger systems. Earth's current speed seems to strike a workable balance, avoiding extremes that could destabilize climate. It's a background condition, easy to overlook, yet it touches almost every system. Biology, weather, even geology through its effect on tides and mantle motion. In the planetary symphony, rotation is the steady beat that keeps time. Tides, driven by the gravitational pull of the moon and sun, do more than move water. They stir coastal zones, mixing nutrients and oxygen into shallow waters where life thrives. Tidal flats and estuaries are among the most productive ecosystems on Earth, feeding both marine and terrestrial food webs. For early life, tides may have played a role in concentrating organic molecules, aiding the chemistry that led to living cells. Tidal forces also flex the planet's crust slightly, influencing volcanic and seismic activity in subtle ways. The strength of tides depends largely on the moon's distance and size relative to Earth, a relationship unusual among planets. This closeness gives us tides strong enough to shape ecosystems, but not so strong as to flood coastlines daily. Over time, tidal friction has not only slowed Earth's rotation, but also pushed the moon gradually farther away. This long-term change alters tidal strength, but on a timescale slow enough for life to adapt. The predictability of tides has been a constant in human history, guiding fishing, navigation, and even cultural rhythms. They are a reminder that celestial mechanics are not abstract. They touch the shorelines we walk and the food we eat. The balance between land and sea shapes climate, biodiversity, and human history. Continents break up the ocean's surface, redirecting currents and creating varied climates. Large landmasses develop interiors with more extreme temperatures, while coasts remain moderated by the sea. Mountain ranges influence rainfall by forcing moist air upward, cooling it to release precipitation on one side and leaving dry regions on the other. The layout of continents affects how species evolve, migrate, and mix. In Earth's history, supercontinents like Pangaea allowed widespread exchange of life, while their breakup isolated populations, fostering diversity. The current arrangement provides a mix of connectedness and isolation, enabling both stability and innovation in ecosystems. Continental shelves, shallow seas along coastlines, are especially rich in life, benefiting from sunlight and nutrient runoff. Human civilization has clustered along these edges, where resources are abundant and trade routes natural. If continents were smaller or more scattered, ocean circulation patterns might shift drastically, altering climate. If land dominated too much of the surface, rainfall patterns and heat distribution could limit habitable zones. The present balance is not perfect, but it has supported a long era in which both marine and terrestrial life flourish, side by side. Plate tectonics underlies many of the features we take for granted. Moving plates recycle crust, drive mountain building and shape ocean basins. This movement regulates carbon dioxide levels through the carbon silicate cycle, helping to stabilize climate over millions of years. Without tectonics, Earth might resemble Venus, geologically stagnant, with a runaway greenhouse effect, or Mars, cold and barren after losing its atmosphere. The movement of plates also creates diverse habitats, rift valleys, volcanic islands, and mountain chains. These, in turn, influence weather patterns, river systems, and biodiversity. Tectonics is powered by heat from the core, which is maintained by the planet's size and composition. Too small a planet cools quickly. Too large and tectonic activity might be too violent. Earth's pace of movement seems to allow enough geological refreshment to keep the surface dynamic without constant catastrophe. The joining and breaking apart of continents over time has repeatedly reset the biological and climatic stage, fostering bursts of evolution and altering ocean currents. While earthquakes and eruptions can be destructive locally, their global role is constructive, sustaining the cycles that make Earth habitable. It's another example of how processes that seem purely dangerous are, in the long view, essential. Mineral diversity supports life in subtle but profound ways. Earth hosts thousands of distinct minerals, each with unique properties that shape landscapes, soils, and resources. Many are products of biological activity. Oxygen in the atmosphere allowed new minerals to form, while organic matter contributed to ore deposits. Minerals influence water chemistry, affecting what plants and animals can thrive in an area. They also serve as catalysts for chemical reactions, some of which may have been crucial to life's origin. Clay minerals, for instance, can trap and concentrate organic molecules, offering surfaces where complex chemistry can unfold. The availability of certain metals, iron for blood, magnesium for chlorophyll, zinc for enzymes, depends on the planet's geological history. Mining by humans is just a recent chapter in a much older story of mineral cycling through weathering, sedimentation, and metamorphism. Other worlds may have fewer mineral types, limiting the range of possible chemistries. On Earth, this variety gives life multiple pathways to adapt and thrive. It also means that across continents and ages, environments differ enough to keep evolution experimenting. The solid ground beneath our feet is more than a stage, it's an active participant in the planet's life support system. Earth's magnetic field is an invisible shield, extending far beyond the atmosphere into space. Generated by the movement of molten iron in the outer core, it deflects most of the charged particles streaming from the sun. Without it, the solar wind would erode our atmospheres, stripping away gases critical for life. Mars, lacking such a strong magnetic field, offers a cautionary example. Its thin atmosphere is a remnant of what it once had. The field also helps guide migratory animals from sea turtles to birds, who sense its orientation as a navigational aid. Auroras, those shimmering lights near the poles, are the visible evidence of the field at work as particles spiral along magnetic lines and collide with atmospheric atoms. The field's strength and configuration have changed over time, even reversing polarity on occasion. These reversals happen slowly, and life seems to adapt without major crisis. The fact that the dynamo in the core continues to operate after billions of years suggests a balance of planetary size, composition, and cooling rate that is rare. It is a silent partner in habitability, one most living things never notice directly, but without which the conditions we take for granted would unravel quickly. Rainforests are often called the lungs of the planet, but they are also its vast chemical laboratories. They recycle water through rapid transpiration, releasing moisture back into the atmosphere and influencing weather far beyond their borders. The Amazon, for example, generates much of its own rainfall, sustaining a closed-loop system that supports millions of species. Rainforests store carbon in dense biomass, slowing climate change by removing CO2 from the air. They also release oxygen, though the balance between production and consumption means they are more important for carbon cycling than as an oxygen source. Their layered structure from canopy to understory to forest floor creates countless niches for specialized organisms. Many of these species interact in intricate ways, from pollination to seed dispersal to predator-prey dynamics. Rainforests also host plants with biochemical compounds that have inspired medicine. Their role in stabilizing climate, preserving biodiversity, and maintaining atmospheric balance makes them a keystone of global habitability. Yet they exist only where temperature, rainfall, and soil allow, conditions shaped by larger planetary systems. They are proof that when those conditions align, life responds with exuberance, filling every available niche until the forest becomes a world unto itself. Deserts, at first glance barren, are another facet of Earth's diversity. They cover about a third of the land surface, shaped by patterns of wind, rain, and geography. Deserts form where air descends in subtropical high-pressure zones, where mountain ranges block moisture, or where cold ocean currents limit evaporation. These regions challenge life with extremes, scorching days, frigid nights, and scarce water. Yet specialized plants and animals thrive here, from deep-rooted shrubs to nocturnal mammals and reptiles that conserve every drop of moisture. Deserts store vast mineral resources, their dry climates preserving deposits of salt, gypsum, and metals. Their sands travel on the wind, fertilizing distant forests and oceans with nutrients. Human cultures have adapted here too, developing ways to harvest water from sparse sources and navigate with limited landmarks. Deserts influence climate on a larger scale by reflecting sunlight and shaping atmospheric circulation. If deserts were larger, they could spread aridity into more regions. If smaller, rainfall patterns might shift, altering ecosystems far beyond their borders. They are reminders that habitability is not uniform but patchwork, and that even the harshest environments contribute to the planet's overall balance. Grasslands, stretching across continents, are shaped by a mix of climate, soil, and disturbance. They thrive where rainfall is too low for forests but high enough to prevent desert. Fire and grazing keep trees from dominating, allowing grasses to spread. These ecosystems store carbon in deep root systems, stabilizing soil and supporting vast herds of herbivores. Seasonal cycles of growth and dormancy feed migrations and influence predator-prey dynamics. Grasslands are also among the most productive agricultural zones. Their fertile soils formed by centuries of plant decay and microbial activity. The openness of grasslands affects weather, allowing winds to move freely and storms to travel great distances. They often act as transition zones, buffering forests, deserts, and wetlands. If rainfall patterns shift, grasslands can expand or contract rapidly, reshaping regional climates and food supplies. Their resilience comes from their simplicity. Grasses can regrow quickly after fire, drought, or grazing, maintaining productivity through disturbance. They are quiet stabilizers in the planetary mosaic, vast, windswept, and integral to both wild ecosystems and human civilization. Wetlands are among the most productive habitats on Earth, sitting at the meeting points of land and water. Marshes, swamps, bogs, and fens all serve as filters, trapping sediments and breaking down pollutants before they reach rivers, lakes, or seas. They store carbon in saturated soils where decomposition is slow, making them significant in climate regulation. Wetlands buffer floods by absorbing excess water and release it slowly, reducing downstream erosion. They provide nurseries for fish, stopovers for migratory birds, and homes for amphibians and insects. Their position in the landscape often makes them vulnerable to drainage or development, yet their loss can ripple far beyond the immediate area, reducing water quality, increasing flood risk, and diminishing biodiversity. Wetlands are shaped by the same systems that sustain the rest of the planet: rainfall patterns, river flows, and sea levels. Their persistence over time signals stability in those systems. Even small wetlands can have outsized impacts, proving that habitability is not only a matter of global factors, but also of countless local interactions between water, soil, plants, and animals. Coral reefs are living fortresses built in shallow, warm seas. Tiny coral polyps secrete calcium correlate skeletons, forming structures that can last centuries or even millennia. In partnership with photosynthetic algae, corals create vibrant ecosystems that rival rainforests in biodiversity. Reefs protect coastlines from storms, breaking waves before they reach shore. They support fisheries, tourism, and cultural traditions. Their growth depends on clear, sunlit water within narrow temperature and salinity ranges. Too much sediment, pollution, or heat can cause coral bleaching, where algae are expelled and corals may die. Over geological time, reefs have come and gone with changes in sea level and climate, yet they have repeatedly reappeared, reshaping marine life each time. They are intricate expressions of stability and fragility, able to build massive structures over centuries, yet vulnerable to sudden change. The conditions that allow them to thrive are a convergence of ocean chemistry, climate, and biological cooperation, making reefs both a product and a measure of planetary health. Mountains rise where tectonic plates collide, lifting rock toward the sky. Their height and shape influence weather, forcing air upward, cooling it, and causing precipitation. This creates lush slopes on one side and dry rain shadows on the other. Mountains store water as snow and ice, releasing it gradually through meltwater into rivers that feed lowland ecosystems and cities. They are hotspots of biodiversity, with species adapted to specific altitudes and microclimates. Steep terrain limits human development, preserving pockets of wilderness. Mountains also expose deep layers of rock, offering clues to Earth's history. Their erosion feeds valleys and plains with fertile sediments. Culturally, mountains have been sources of inspiration, spiritual significance, and natural boundaries. Without them, weather patterns, river systems, and even ocean currents could be very different. They are shaped by the same tectonic forces that create earthquakes and volcanoes, linking them to deep processes of the planet. In the grand balance, mountains are both the product of Earth's restlessness and a stabilizing influence on its climate and water cycles. Rivers are the arteries of the continents, carrying water, sediments, and nutrients from highlands to seas. They carve valleys, shape floodplains, and connect ecosystems over vast distances. Seasonal floods deposit fertile soils that have supported agriculture for millennia, from the Nile to the Mekong. Rivers also transport organic matter to coastal zones, fueling fisheries and supporting estuarine ecosystems. Their meanders, deltas, and braided channels reflect the balance between flow, sediment load, and the terrain they cross. The patterns of river networks influence human settlement, trade routes, and political boundaries. Rivers can shift course over centuries, creating new wetlands or leaving behind oxbow lakes. Their flow depends on rainfall, snowmelt, and groundwater discharge systems tied to climate stability. Too much flow at once causes floods, too little leads to drought. Yet many rivers have maintained relatively stable patterns over human history, enough to anchor civilizations. They also act as corridors for wildlife, allowing species to migrate and disperse. Even in remote areas, rivers knit together landscapes, moving life-sustaining water through a planet that would otherwise be patchy and disconnected. Lakes, whether vast inland seas or small mountain tarns, are time capsules of climate and ecological history. Sediments on their bottoms preserve pollen, minerals, and even microscopic organisms, offering records of past temperatures, vegetation, and rainfall. Lakes moderate local climates, absorbing heat in summer and releasing it in winter. They provide fresh water, habitat, and a resource base for humans and wildlife alike. Some, like the African Great Lakes, are biodiversity hotspots, with species found nowhere else. Others, like glacial lakes, are short-lived on geological scales, but important for their regions. While they exist, the chemistry of a lake depends on the rocks and soils in its watershed, influencing which species can thrive. Lakes connect to rivers, wetlands, and groundwater, making them nodes in the larger hydrological network. If lakes dry or fill with sediment, those connections weaken, altering surrounding ecosystems, despite being vulnerable to climate shifts and human use. Many lakes have persisted for tens of thousands of years, holding steady enough to be reliable anchors for both nature and culture. Glaciers are slow-moving rivers of ice, formed where snowfall exceeds melting over years. They grind rock beneath them into fine sediment, sculpting valleys and leaving behind fertile soils when they retreat. Glaciers act as freshwater reservoirs, releasing meltwater during warm seasons to feed rivers long after rains have stopped. This role is critical in regions where summer water supplies depend on winter snow and ice. The white surfaces of glaciers reflect sunlight, helping cool the planet. Over centuries, they respond to climate shifts, advancing in colder periods and shrinking in warmer ones. These movements shape landscapes and influence sea levels. Glacial melt during ice ages and interglacials has repeatedly reshaped coastlines and ecosystems. In polar regions, ice sheets hold enough water to raise seas by many meters if fully melted, making their stability a major factor in global habitability. Glaciers are both record keepers and active participants in Earth's climate system, holding the memory of past atmospheres in trapped bubbles of ancient air. Soils are living systems, not inert ground. They form over centuries as rock weathers and organic matter accumulates, creating layers rich in minerals and microorganisms. Healthy soils support plants, which in turn feed animals and people. They store carbon, filter water, and recycle nutrients through a web of decomposers, fungi, and bacteria. Soil type depends on climate, parent rock, and biological activity, leading to immense diversity from deep prairie soils to thin alpine layers. Erosion can strip soil away quickly, but under stable conditions, soils can last for millennia. Human agriculture has depended on them since its beginnings, and many of the world's most fertile soils are the product of long-term natural processes like river flooding or volcanic ash deposition. Without soil, terrestrial life would collapse. Without living organisms in the soil, its ability to sustain life would diminish. It is a quiet fountain for habitability, built grain by grain. The hydrological cycle is Earth's circulatory system, moving water through evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and runoff. Oceans lose water to the atmosphere through evaporation. Winds carry it over land where it falls as rain or snow. Some seeps into the ground, recharging aquifers. Some runs off into rivers and lakes, eventually returning to the sea. This constant movement redistributes heat, nutrients, and energy. The cycle depends on solar energy, gravity, and the planet's rotation to keep it in motion. Disruptions, whether from climate change, deforestation, or altered land use, can shift rainfall patterns and water availability. Yet over millions of years, the cycle has remained robust enough to keep Earth's surface hydrated. It links every environment, from the smallest pond to the largest ocean, into a single interconnected system. Without it, water would stagnate in one place or vanish into space, and life would fragment into isolated pockets. Earth's climate system is a complex interplay between atmosphere, oceans, ice, land, and living things. Feedback loops stabilize or amplify changes. Ice reflects sunlight, cooling the planet. Plants absorb CO2, moderating greenhouse effects. Clouds both reflect sunlight and trap heat, their net effect depending on type and location. Ocean currents move warm water toward the poles and cold water toward the equator, distributing energy and nutrients. Volcanic eruptions and asteroid impacts can cause short-term cooling, while human activity now exerts its own influence. Despite variability, the climate has remained within a range that allows liquid water and complex ecosystems for billions of years. This suggests that stabilizing mechanisms, whether purely physical or also shaped by life, are strong. The climate's ability to recover from disruptions is a key part of Earth's long-term habitability. Biodiversity acts as a form of insurance for the planet. The more species and genetic variation present, the greater the resilience of ecosystems to change. If one species declines, others can fill its role, keeping essential functions like pollination, nutrient cycling and seed dispersal intact. Diversity also fosters innovation. New traits and strategies emerge through evolution, allowing life to adapt to shifting conditions. Ecosystems with high biodiversity tend to be more stable and productive. This richness arises from Earth's varied climates, landscapes, and long evolutionary history. Mass extinctions reduce diversity, but recovery over time often produces even greater complexity. Biodiversity is not just a product of habitability, it helps maintain it. Each organism is a thread in a web whose strength comes from its connections, making the loss of any one thread a risk to the whole. Symbiosis, long-term cooperation between different species, is one of Earth's most powerful survival strategies. From coral polyps partnering with algae to plants relying on fungi for nutrient exchange, these relationships allow organisms to do together what they cannot do alone. Pollinators, like bees and butterflies, link flowering plants to the next generation. Gut microbes help animals digest food and produce essential vitamins. Even predators and prey can be linked in ways that keep populations stable over time. These partnerships increase efficiency, resilience, and adaptability in ecosystems. They also illustrate how life shapes the planet as much as the planet shapes life. A single disruption, such as the loss of a pollinator species, can ripple through food webs. Symbiosis is both fragile and robust, fragile in its reliance on specific partners, robust in its ability to evolve new connections. On a larger scale, Earth's entire biosphere might be seen as a web of interdependent systems, plants making oxygen, animals spreading seeds, microbes recycling nutrients, each reinforcing the conditions that make the planet habitable. Migration is another pattern that ties life to planetary cycles. Birds cross continents to follow seasons. Whales travel thousands of kilometers to breed and feed. Caribou move with the greening of tundra. These movements link distant ecosystems, transferring energy and nutrients across vast areas. Migratory routes are tuned to environmental cues, lengthening days, temperature changes, shifting winds. Some species navigate by the sun, others by the stars or Earth's magnetic field. These journeys depend on stable stopover sites and predictable climates. If those conditions change too quickly, migrations can falter, threatening species and the systems they connect. Migration also shapes human culture, from following game herds in ancient times to modern birdwatching. It is a reminder that habitability is not just about a place being livable, it's about the paths between those places remaining open and reliable. Seasonal cycles, driven by Earth's axial tilt, bring a rhythm to life that is neither too fast nor too slow. In temperate regions, plants leaf out in spring, grow through summer, drop leaves in autumn, and rest in winter. Animals breed, migrate, or hibernate in response. In the tropics, wet and dry seasons shape flowering and fruiting times, synchronizing food availability with reproduction. This predictability allows species to plan in the biological sense for the future. Crops ripen when they are most likely to be harvested. Young are born when food is abundant. If the tilt were much greater, seasons would be more extreme, challenging survival. With less tilt, seasons would fade, potentially reducing the diversity of strategies life can use. The current angle, about 23.5 degrees, strikes a balance that fosters variety without chaos, making Earth's annual cycle one of its most dependable metronomes. Fungi are quiet architects of habitability. They break down complex organic matter, recycling nutrients into forms plants can use. Mycorrhizal fungi form vast underground networks, connecting plant roots and allowing the exchange of water, minerals, and even chemical signals. This wood-wide web increases forest resilience, helping trees share resources in times of stress. Fungi also form lichens with algae, pioneering bare rock and creating soil over time. They store carbon in soil and influence atmospheric composition through decomposition rates. Some fungi produce antibiotics, shaping microbial communities and eventually human medicine. Without fungi, dead matter would pile up, nutrients would lock away, and ecosystems would starve. Their role is largely invisible, yet indispensable, another example of how the planet's stability depends on processes happening out of sight. Insects, despite their small size, are critical engineers of the biosphere. They pollinate most flowering plantings, ensuring food for countless other species. They break down waste, recycle nutrients, and serve as the base of food chains for birds, fish, and mammals. Insects aerate soil, disperse seeds, and control pest populations by feeding on one another. Their sheer numbers and diversity, millions of species, make them adaptable to almost any environment. This adaptability means that if conditions shift, some insects can adjust quickly, keeping ecosystems functioning. However, declines in insect populations can trigger cascading effects, from reduced crop yields to bird declines. Insects embody the principle that habitability depends on a multitude of small actions repeated everywhere, all the time. Predators help keep ecosystems balanced by controlling prey populations. Without them, herbivores can overgraze, leading to soil erosion and habitat loss. Predators influence prey behavior as well. Animals may avoid certain areas, allowing vegetation there to recover. This landscape of fear can shape ecosystems as much as physical geography. Apex predators, from wolves to sharks, sit atop food webs, indirectly supporting biodiversity throughout the system. Their presence or absence can trigger trophic cascades, where changes at the top ripple down through every level. Predators often have large ranges and low reproduction rates, making them vulnerable to environmental change. Yet when they are present in healthy numbers, they act as regulators, maintaining the equilibrium that underpins habitability. Scavengers and decomposers are the final link in the cycle of life, ensuring that nothing is wasted. Vultures, hyenas, crabs, beetles, and countless microbes consume the dead, returning nutrients to the soil and water. Without them, carcasses would accumulate, disease would spread, and essential elements would remain locked away. Scavengers also limit the spread of pathogens by rapidly removing decaying matter. Their work is unglamorous, but essential. Habitable worlds are not just about growth and birth, but also about efficient recycling. In this way, the cleanup crew is as important as the builders and producers. Life's continuity depends on every stage of the cycle functioning smoothly, from the first spark of a seed to the last breath of a creature and the transformation of its body back into the raw materials for something new. Fire is often seen as purely destructive, yet on Earth it plays a renewing role in many ecosystems. In grasslands, savannas, and certain forests, periodic fires clear dead vegetation, release nutrients back into the soil, and create open spaces for new growth. Some plants have seeds that only germinate after exposure to heat or smoke, relying on fire as part of their life cycle. Animals adapt too. Some burrow to escape flames, others move quickly to recolonize burned areas. Fire influences vegetation patterns, preventing certain ecosystems from becoming overgrown and allowing a mosaic of habitats to exist side by side. Lighting is the most common natural ignition source, linking fire cycles to weather patterns. Too much fire or too frequent can exhaust soils and destroy seed banks. Too little can allow fuel to accumulate, leading to catastrophic burns. Earth's balance allows fire to be a sculptor rather than a destroyer, shaping landscapes and maintaining biodiversity. This dynamic, though dangerous in the short term, is part of the long-term stability of many regions. Wind is a global architect, moving air masses, distributing heat, and carrying seeds, spores, and pollen across vast distances. It shapes coastlines by driving waves, sculpts sand dunes in deserts, and redistributes snow in mountains. Winds are born from differences in temperature and pressure, themselves the product of Earth's rotation, solar heating, and the arrangement of continents and oceans. Migrating birds and insects use prevailing winds to conserve energy during long journeys. Plants like dandelions and grasses rely on wind for reproduction, sending seeds to colonize new ground. In the oceans, wind drives surface currents, influencing climate and nutrient upwelling that feeds marine life. Too much wind can erode soils and strip vegetation. Too little can stagnate air and water, reducing circulation. The patterns we have now, steady trade winds, shifting monsoons, temperate breezes, are part of the climate rhythm that life has adapted to for millions of years. Wind is an invisible but constant sculptor of habitability. Oceans are Earth's largest life support system, covering over 70% of the surface. They store and transport heat, regulate climate, and produce roughly half of the planet's oxygen through phytoplankton photosynthesis. Ocean currents redistribute energy, making coastal climates milder than inlines at the same latitude. Nutrient cycles in the sea sustain vast food webs, from microscopic plankton to giant whales. The ocean absorbs CO2, buffering climate change, though at the cost of increasing acidity. Its depth provides stable environments largely insulated from surface fluctuations, allowing unique ecosystems to evolve in the deep. The interplay between sunlight in surface waters and darkness below creates a layered structure, each supporting different forms of life. Without the ocean's vast heat capacity, Earth's temperature swings would be far greater, and many regions would be less hospitable. The ocean's stability and dynamism together make it one of the planet's most essential components of habitability. Sea ice is a seasonal phenomenon, with global consequences. In polar regions, it forms as the surface of the ocean freezes, creating a reflective layer that bounces sunlight back into space and helps regulate Earth's temperature. Beneath the ice, unique communities thrive. Algae grow within and under the ice, feeding small crustaceans that sustain fish, birds, and marine mammals. The seasonal melting and freezing of sea ice influence ocean circulation by changing salinity. When ice forms, salt is expelled, increasing the density of surrounding water and driving deep currents. Sea ice also acts as a habitat and hunting platform for animals like polar bears and seals. Its presence or absence affects weather patterns far beyond the poles. Too little ice reduces the planet's reflectivity, amplifying warming. Too much could cool the climate and alter precipitation patterns. The annual rhythm of sea ice is a planetary heartbeat, marking the changing seasons on a scale that ties the poles to the tropics. Estuaries are the meeting places of rivers and seas, where fresh water mixes with salt water to create nutrient-rich environments. These zones are nurseries for countless fish species, feeding grounds for birds, and home to plants adapted to brackish water. The constant mixing of tides and river flow stirs nutrients into the water column, fueling high productivity. Estuaries also filter pollutants and trap sediments, protecting offshore ecosystems like coral reefs and seagrass beds. Their position makes them vulnerable to both upstream impacts, like pollution and altered river flows, and downstream pressures such as sea level rise. Yet their ability to buffer storms and absorb floodwaters makes them vital for coastal resilience. Estuaries show how habitability is often found in transition zones, where different systems overlap and create something more than the sum of their parts. Mangroves are coastal forests, rooted in the intertidal zones of tropical and subtropical regions. Their tangled roots anchor in muddy soils, holding coastlines together against erosion. They provide shelter for fish, crustaceans, and birds, and serve as nurseries for species that later move to open waters. Mangroves filter sediments and pollutants, improving water quality. They also store significant amounts of carbon, both in their biomass and in the rich soils beneath them. Adapted to saltwater, they use specialized structures to breathe in oxygen-poor mud and excrete excess salt. Mangroves protect shorelines from storm surges, acting as living seawalls. Their loss can leave coastal communities more exposed to extreme weather. In the balance of Earth's systems, mangroves are both guardians and providers, and in between land and sea as living fortifications. Seagrass meadows are underwater prairies found in shallow coastal waters. Like terrestrial grasslands, they stabilize sediment, prevent erosion, and provide habitat for a wide range of species. Seagrass absorbs CO2 efficiently, storing it in roots and sediments for centuries. These meadows are feeding grounds for turtles, dugongs, and countless fish species. Their presence supports nearby coral reefs and mangroves by filtering water and cycling nutrients. Seagrass beds also dampen wave energy, protecting coast. They depend on clear, sunlit waters and stable sediment conditions. Too much disturbance from storms or human activity can uproot them. Yet, when healthy, they form one of the most productive ecosystems on Earth, quietly contributing to the planet's climate regulation and biodiversity. Tides are the slow breathing of the oceans. driven by the gravitational pull of the moon and to a lesser extent the sun. This regular rise and fall of water shapes coastlines, nourishes tidal flats, and influences the life cycles of countless marine species. Some fish spawn only during certain tidal phases. Crabs and shellfish time their movements to the rhythm of the tide. Tides flush estuaries with fresh nutrients, prevent stagnation in bays, and transport larvae and seeds between habitats. The predictability of tides has guided human navigation, fishing, and settlement for millennia. Without the moon's stabilizing influence, tides would be weaker, and many coastal ecosystems might not exist in their current form. Conversely, if tides were much stronger, they could erode shorelines rapidly and disrupt coastal stability. In their current state, tides are gentle enough to sustain life yet strong enough to keep coasts dynamic and fertile. The moon's gravitational influence does more than drive tides. It also stabilizes Earth's axial tilt. Without it, the planet's orientation could vary wildly over long timescales, causing extreme shifts in climate. The moon's presence has likely prevented such chaos, allowing relatively stable seasons for hundreds of millions of years. It also brightens the night, influencing the behavior of nocturnal animals and early human societies. Lunar cycles have guided migrations, breeding patterns, and agricultural calendars. The moon's size relative to Earth is unusual for a planet of our scale, and its formation, likely from a massive impact early in Earth's history, was a pivotal event in shaping the planet's evolution. Its constant companionship in the sky is not just poetic, it is a steadying hand on the planet's long-term climate and a participant in the rhythms of life. Volcanoes are expressions of Earth's internal heat, bringing molten rock, gases, and minerals from deep within to the surface. They build new land, enrich soils with nutrients, and influence climate through the release of aerosols and greenhouse gases. Volcanic islands like Hawaii are born from persistent eruptions, creating entirely new ecosystems over time. Ash from eruptions can fertilize oceans, boosting phytoplankton growth. On shorter timescales, large eruptions can cool the planet temporarily by reflecting sunlight with fine particles in the atmosphere. The balance of volcanic activity is important. Too much could blanket the planet in ash or raise CO2 levels excessively. Too little might reduce the recycling of essential minerals and gases. Volcanism is a reminder that Earth's surface is not static, and that the processes that sometimes threaten life also sustain it over geological timescales. Earthquakes, though destructive locally, are part of the same tectonic forces that shape mountains, form new crust, and drive the rock cycle. They release built-up energy along faults, preventing even larger ruptures from occurring in a single catastrophic event. Earthquakes can change the course of rivers, create new lakes, and alter coastlines. They are also critical to understanding the planet's interior. Seismic waves reveal the structure of the crust, mantle, and core. The presence of earthquakes signals a dynamic planet with an active interior, a feature linked to long-term habitability. Without plate tectonics and the occasional quake, carbon and nutrients locked in rock might not be recycled efficiently into the biosphere. In this way, even sudden dangerous events are threads in the deeper fabric that sustains life. Hydrothermal vents on the seafloor are oases in the deep ocean's darkness. They form where seawater seeps into cracks near volcanic activity, becomes superheated, and then bursts back out loaded with minerals. Around these vents, life thrives without sunlight, relying on chemosynthesis rather than photosynthesis. Bacteria and archaea use the chemical energy from minerals like hydrogen sulfide to produce food, supporting communities of giant tubeworms, clams, and crabs. These ecosystems are isolated, yet stable for decades, offering a glimpse of how life might exist on other worlds without light. Hydrothermal vents also influence ocean chemistry and may have played a role in the origin of life itself. They are a reminder that habitability is not limited to the sun's reach, but can emerge wherever energy and chemistry meet in the right conditions. Upwelling zones in the oceans are regions where deep, cold, nutrient-rich water rises to the surface. Driven by wind patterns and the rotation of the Earth, these areas are some of the most productive ecosystems on the planet. The nutrients brought upward fuel blooms of phytoplankton, which feed zooplankton, fish, and eventually large marine predators and humans. Coastal upwelling supports major fisheries in places like Peru and California, making it vital for both natural and human food webs. Changes in wind patterns or ocean currents can weaken upwelling, reducing productivity and causing ripple effects through ecosystems. The regularity of these events sustains life far beyond their immediate area, demonstrating how localized processes can have global significance in maintaining habitability. Atmospheric circulation is the grand conveyor of heat and moisture around the globe. Driven by the uneven heating of the Earth's surface, air rises at the equator, moves toward the poles, and sinks in subtropical and polar regions. This creates belts of trade winds, westerlies, and polar easterlies that shape weather patterns and precipitation. Circulation connects the tropics with temperate and polar zones, ensuring that no region is entirely cut off from the planet's broader climate system. Disruptions to these patterns, whether from volcanic eruptions, solar variation, or human influence, can shift rainfall, alter storm tracks, and change temperatures far from the original source. The stability of atmospheric circulation over human timescales has allowed agriculture, trade, and settlement to adapt to predictable climates, making it a foundation of habitability as much as any single ecosystem. Jet streams are narrow, fast-flowing ribbons of air, high in the atmosphere, marking the boundaries between large air masses with different temperatures. These powerful winds influence storm tracks, precipitation patterns, and the movement of weather systems across continents. Pilots use them to save fuel and time, while meteorologists track them to forecast changes in climate and seasonal shifts. Jet streams form from the temperature contrast between the equator and the poles, intensified by Earth's rotation. They meander like rivers, sometimes splitting or merging, creating blocks of stable weather or rapid changes. A strong, stable jet stream can bring predictable seasons. A weakened or erratic one can cause prolonged heat waves, floods, or droughts. In this way, the position and strength of jet streams act as a fine-tuning mechanism for habitability, affecting crops, water availability, and even the migration patterns of animals. Over long timescales, the stability of these atmospheric highways helps link ecosystems across vast distances, ensuring that seasonal rhythms remain coherent from one region to another. Rainforests are the lungs and water pumps of the planet, generating their own weather and influencing climate far beyond their borders. Dense vegetation transpires vast amounts of water vapor, feeding clouds that can travel and produce rain hundreds of kilometers away. The biodiversity in rainforests is unparalleled. Millions of species, many still undiscovered, interact in intricate webs of mutual dependence. Rainforests store immense amounts of carbon in their biomass, buffering the atmosphere against greenhouse gases. Their layered canopies create microclimates, sheltering delicate organisms and allowing complex life cycles to unfold in stability. Rivers originating in rainforest regions carry nutrients to farmlands and coastal ecosystems. However, the resilience of rainforest depends on consistent rainfall and intact ecological networks. Large-scale disruptions can turn them into savannas, altering global weather patterns. For millions of years, these forests have been engines of habitability, shaping both local and planetary systems. Savannas, with their open grasslands dotted by scattered trees, are shaped by a balance of fire, herbivory, and seasonal rainfall. These ecosystems support vast herds of grazing animals, which in turn sustain predators, scavengers, and decomposers. Seasonal rains bring rapid bursts of plant growth, followed by dry periods that slow the cycle, preventing overgrowth. The open structure allows sunlight to reach grasses and shrubs, maintaining biodiversity through coexistence of many species. Fire, often sparked by lightning, plays a key role in preventing tree cover from becoming too dense. Savannas also store carbon, though less than dense forests, and their extensive root systems stabilize soils against erosion. They are transitional zones between forest and desert, sensitive to shifts in climate and human use. Their persistence over millions of years reflects a dynamic equilibrium, one that produces abundance without excess, sustaining both wildlife and the people who have lived alongside them since deep prehistory. Deserts may seem inhospitable, but they are finely tuned systems adapted to extremes of heat, cold, and scarcity. Rainfall is rare and often comes in sudden bursts, triggering short-lived blooms of plants and insect life. Many desert animals are nocturnal, avoiding daytime heat and conserving water through specialized physiology. Deserts also play a role in planetary systems. Wind-blown dust from deserts, like the Sahara, fertilizes distant ecosystems, including the Amazon rainforest. Temperature swings between day and night influence air circulation patterns and regional climates. While deserts cover large portions of Earth, their stability is delicate. Slight changes in rainfall or temperature can shift their boundaries. Over geological time, deserts have expanded and contracted, influencing migration routes, biodiversity, and human settlement patterns. Though sparse in vegetation, deserts are part of the global fabric that balances energy, water, and nutrient flows across continents. Polar regions are Earth's extremes, where sunlight can vanish for months or shine without setting. These environments store vast amounts of fresh water as ice and snow, acting as a climate regulator for the entire planet. Polar ice reflects sunlight, keeping the planet cooler, while the cold air masses generated there influence weather patterns worldwide. Despite the harshness, life flourishes. Plankton blooms in summer, feed fish, seals, whales, and seabirds. On land, mosses, lichens, and hardy flowering plants endure short growing seasons. Polar bears, penguins, and countless other species are adapted to this rhythm of abundance and scarcity. The stability of polar ecosystems depends on ice cover and predictable seasonal cycles. Disruptions can alter ocean currents, raise sea levels, and shift climate zones thousands of kilometers away. In the planetary balance, the poles are both guardians of stability and sensitive indicators of change. Mountains are engines of diversity, creating varied climates and habitats over short distances. As air rises over mountains, it cools and drops moisture, creating lush slopes on one side and dry regions on the other. Rivers born from mountain snow and glaciers feed valleys and plains, supporting agriculture and cities far downstream. Elevation gradients allow species to migrate vertically in response to climate shifts, offering refuges during warming or cooling periods. Mountains also act as weather barriers, influencing wind patterns and storm tracks. The rugged terrain limits large-scale human alteration in many areas, preserving biodiversity. Geological activity continually reshapes mountains, renewing soils through erosion and landslides. By capturing moisture, generating rivers, and creating microclimates, mountains are central to the interconnected systems that make Earth habitable. Wetlands are the planet's natural sponges, absorbing excess water during floods and releasing it slowly during dry periods. They filter pollutants, trap sediments, and store carbon in waterlogged soils where decomposition is slow. Wetlands provide breeding grounds for fish, amphibians, and birds, many of which migrate between distant habitats. They are rich in biodiversity, often hosting species found nowhere else. The transition from water to land in wetlands creates complex food webs and nutrient cycles. These systems are highly productive yet fragile, dependent on consistent water flow and seasonal rhythms. When intact, wetlands protect coastlines from storm surges, reduce erosion, and recharge groundwater. Their presence across climates from Arctic tundra to tropical mangroves shows how adaptable yet essential they are. Without wetlands, many landscapes would lose their resilience, and habitability would decline in ways that might not be immediately visible but would be deeply felt over time. Coral reefs are among the most biologically diverse ecosystems on Earth, often called the rainforests of the sea. Built over thousands of years by tiny coral polyps, these structures provide shelter and feeding grounds for an extraordinary range of species, from fish and crustaceans to sea turtles and sharks. Reefs act as nurseries for many marine organisms, sustaining fisheries that feed millions of people. They also buffer coastlines against waves and storms, reducing erosion and protecting human settlements. Corals rely on symbiotic algae to supply energy through photosynthesis, a relationship that depends on clear, warm, and nutrient-balanced waters. Changes in temperature, pollution, or acidity can break this partnership, leading to coral bleaching and mortality. Yet when conditions remain stable, reefs can persist for centuries, steadily growing and adapting to sea level changes. Beyond their ecological roles, coral reefs influence ocean chemistry and even local weather patterns by altering wave energy and evaporation rates. Their complex, interlocking structures demonstrate how life can literally build the foundations of its own habitat. On a planet where habitability depends on connections between systems, reefs are living proof of the intricate bonds that sustain life and a reminder that stability requires both resilience and balance. Kelp forests are towering underwater habitats formed by giant brown algae, some growing over 30 meters tall, anchored to rocky seafloors. Kelp fronds sway in coastal currents, creating dense canopies that shelter fish, invertebrates, and marine mammals. These forests are highly productive, converting sunlight into energy that supports diverse food webs. Kelp also dampens wave energy, protecting shorelines, and absorbs large amounts of carbon, helping regulate the climate. Sea otters, a keystone predator, help maintain kelp forests by controlling sea urchin populations, which would otherwise overgraze the kelp. This balance highlights the interconnectedness of species and the vulnerability of systems when one link is broken. Kelp forests grow quickly, making them resilient to moderate disturbances, but they depend on nutrient-rich, cool waters and stable substrates. Shifts in ocean temperature, storms, or pollution can cause rapid decline. In the broader picture of habitability, kelp forests demonstrate the value of structural complexity in ecosystems by creating physical spaces for life to thrive. They amplify biodiversity and resilience along entire coastlines. Grasslands, from North America's prairies to the Eurasian steppes, are shaped by a combination of climate, grazing, and periodic fire. Dominated by grasses with deep root systems, these ecosystems are highly efficient at capturing sunlight and storing carbon in the soil. Seasonal rains bring waves of growth, supporting large herbivores like bison, antelope, and wildebeest, whose migrations distribute nutrients and shape vegetation patterns. Predators follow these herds, completing the cycle. Grasslands also serve as critical recharge zones for aquifers, filtering rainwater through deep soils. Their open landscapes provide habitat for ground-nesting birds, burrowing mammals, and pollinators. Fire plays a vital role in preventing woody plants from overtaking grasses, maintaining the balance between open space and biodiversity. Grasslands can withstand droughts and variable conditions, but they are sensitive to overgrazing and conversion to cropland. When intact, they act as climate buffers, carbon stores, and biodiversity reservoirs. In Earth's habitability mosaic, grasslands are both stabilizers and connectors, linking forests, deserts, and wetlands through the movement of species and the flow of nutrients. Floodplains are dynamic landscapes along rivers periodically inundated when waters rise. These floods deposit nutrient-rich sediments, creating fertile soils that have supported agriculture for thousands of years. Floodplains also act as natural storage systems, absorbing excess water and reducing downstream flooding. The seasonal expansion and contraction of floodplain waters support diverse ecosystems, from fish spawning grounds to wetlands that host migratory birds. Plants and animals in these areas are adapted to shifting conditions, with life cycles tuned to the rhythm of the river. Floodplains connect terrestrial and aquatic environments, allowing the exchange of nutrients, seeds, and organisms. Human settlements have long clustered in these areas for their productivity, but floodplain development can disrupt natural causes, reducing fertility and increasing flood risk. When left intact, floodplains serve as shock absorbers in the hydrological system, spreading out extreme flows and sustaining biodiversity. Their ability to shift and renew over time is a key element in the resilience of both ecosystems and human societies. Rivers in their delta regions spread out into branching channels, depositing sediments carried from upstream. These deltas are rich, dynamic environments where fresh water meets the sea, creating gradients in salinity, temperature, and nutrients that support high biodiversity. Deltas often serve as agricultural heartlands due to their fertile soils and abundant water. They are also nurseries for fish, crustaceans, and mollusks that support both local subsistence and global fisheries. The shape and stability of a delta depend on the balance between sediment delivery, wave action, and sea level rise. Human activities like dam building can reduce sediment supply, causing deltas to sink or retreat. Healthy deltas filter pollutants, buffer storm surges, and connect inland ecosystems to marine ones. Over geological time, deltas shift location, creating new land and altering coastlines. They are among the most productive and interconnected systems on Earth, a testament to the power of rivers to shape not just land but entire ecological networks. Barrier islands are long, narrow stretches of sand parallel to coastlines, formed by waves, currents, and sediment supply. They protect the mainland from storms and erosion by absorbing wave energy while also creating sheltered waters behind them where marshes and estuaries can thrive. Barrier islands shift over time, migrating landward or seaward, depending on sea levels and storm activity. This movement can be rapid in geological terms, yet their function as coastal buffers remains consistent as long as sediment supply is maintained. The islands provide habitat for birds, turtles, and specialized plants adapted to shifting sands and salt spray. Their dynamic nature means they are constantly reshaped, but this very instability is what allows them to adapt to changing conditions. Without barrier islands, many coastlines would be more vulnerable to the full force of ocean storms, making them a subtle but essential part of Earth's habitability system. Sand dunes, whether coastal or inland, are mobile landforms shaped by wind and vegetation. They act as buffers against storms, absorbing wave and wind energy before it reaches inland areas. Dunes also store sand that can replenish eroded beaches naturally. In deserts, dunes provide microhabitats where moisture and shade are slightly more available, supporting specialized plants and animals. Coastal dunes often host grasses and shrubs whose roots stabilize the sand, creating a living defense against erosion. Dune systems shift with the wind, moving slowly over time, yet their role in protecting inland habitats remains steady. They are sensitive to human disturbance. Removing vegetation can lead to rapid dune migration and loss of stability. In the bigger picture, dunes are an example of how even simple landforms can contribute to planetary resilience. By moderating environmental extremes and creating niche habitats, they enhance the complexity and adaptability of the ecosystems they border. Glaciers are slow-moving rivers of ice, formed from layers of compacted snow over centuries. They store vast amounts of fresh water, releasing it gradually through meltwater streams that feed rivers and lakes downstream. In many regions, glaciers act as natural reservoirs, ensuring a steady water supply during dry seasons. They also grind rock beneath them into fine sediment, enriching soils when the ice retreats. Glaciers shape landscapes dramatically, carving valleys, creating fjords, and leaving behind fertile plains. Their reflective surfaces help regulate Earth's temperature by bouncing sunlight back into space. Seasonal and long-term changes in glacier size are indicators of climate trends. While they advance and retreat naturally over millennia, their current rapid loss reduces water security, alters river flows, and contributes to sea level rise. In the web of habitability, glaciers are long-term stabilizers. Slow to change, yet crucial in maintaining steady water and nutrient cycles for both ecosystems and human societies. Permafrost is ground that remains frozen for at least 2 consecutive years, often for thousands. Found in polar and high-altitude regions, it locks away vast stores of carbon in frozen plant material. Permafrost helps shape northern landscapes by supporting unique vegetation and influencing hydrology. When it thaws seasonally at the surface, it creates wetlands, lakes, and rivers that sustain wildlife. Many species have adapted to these seasonal pulses of water and nutrients. The frozen layer also acts as a foundation for forests and tundra ecosystems. However, when permafrost thaws more deeply than usual, it can destabilize the ground, affecting infrastructure and releasing greenhouse gases. Over geological time, permafrost zones expand and contract, influencing global climate through feedback loops. It is a hidden but powerful regulator, storing the past in ice while shaping the present through its seasonal rhythms. The cryosphere, the collective term for all of Earth's frozen water, includes glaciers, ice caps, sea ice, permafrost, and snow cover. This frozen component of the planet plays a major role in climate regulation by reflecting sunlight and storing fresh water. Seasonal snow cover acts as an insulating blanket for soils and plants, protecting them from extreme cold. Snowmelt feeds rivers, supporting agriculture and ecosystems during warmer months. Ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica hold enough water to raise sea levels by tens of meters, if fully melted, making their stability essential for coastal habitability. The cryosphere also influences ocean circulation by contributing cold, dense water that sinks and drives global currents. Changes in its extent have far-reaching effects, altering climate zones, precipitation patterns, and biodiversity. As a whole, the cryosphere is Earth's thermal memory, slower to respond than other systems, but deeply influential on the planet's long-term balance. The hydrological cycle is the continuous movement of water between the atmosphere, oceans, land, and living organisms. Evaporation from oceans and transpiration from plants send water vapor into the air, where it condenses into clouds and returns as precipitation. Water infiltrates the ground, replenishes aquifers, flows in rivers, and eventually returns to the sea. This cycle distributes heat, shapes weather patterns, and connects every ecosystem. Life depends on its reliability. Plants rely on predictable rainfall. Animals migrate to follow water sources, and humans build societies around rivers and fertile plains. The cycle also purifies water naturally, as it moves through soil and rock or falls as rain. Over long timescales, it links geological processes with biological ones, transporting nutrients and shaping landscapes. The hydrological cycle is a planetary circulation system, vital, self-renewing, and integral to the habitability of every corner of Earth. Groundwater is the hidden reservoir beneath our feet, stored in pores and cracks within soil and rock. It is springs, wetlands, and rivers, especially during dry seasons. Many plants tap into shallow groundwater during droughts, and countless communities depend on wells for drinking water. Aquifers recharge slowly as rainwater and snow melt seep through layers of soil and rock, filtering out impurities along the way. This hidden network connects distant landscapes. Water that falls in one place may emerge hundreds of kilometers away. Groundwater also buffers ecosystems against variability in rainfall, maintaining steady conditions for plants and animals. Overuse or contamination can damage aquifers for centuries, disrupting both human and natural systems. In the planetary water cycle, groundwater is the quiet stabilizer, storing excess during wet years and supplying reserves during lean ones. Its invisibility makes it easy to overlook, yet it underpins the resilience of life in many regions. Aquifers are specific groundwater reservoirs, often vast and layered, that can store and release enormous quantities of water. Confined aquifers are sealed between layers of impermeable rock, holding water under pressure, while unconfined ones connect more directly to surface recharge. Aquifers have supplied drinking water for billions and irrigation for much of the world's agriculture. They also sustain rivers, lakes, and wetlands during dry periods. Some aquifers recharge quickly, others, called fossil aquifers, formed thousands of years ago and replenish so slowly that their water is essentially non-renewable on human timescales. Healthy aquifers filter water naturally, maintaining quality and temperature stability. Overpumping can lower water tables, dry up connected ecosystems, and cause land subsidence. In the larger habitability framework, aquifers are deep reserves that smooth out fluctuations in water availability, making them a key insurance policy for life during times of scarcity. Springs occur where groundwater naturally emerges at the surface, forming streams, pools, or wetlands. They often rise where rock layers or faults channel water upward. Springs provide reliable sources of fresh water for plants, animals, and humans, even in arid landscapes. They create microhabitats of stable temperature and moisture, allowing rare and specialized species to thrive. Many springs have cultural and historical significance, serving as gathering points for communities. Some mineral springs support unique ecosystems adapted to high salinity or unusual chemistry. Springs connect underground and surface systems, making them indicators of aquifer health. Their flow patterns can shift with rainfall, land use, or geological activity. But when they remain steady, they act as anchors of habitability in otherwise variable environments. In Earth's interconnected water systems, springs are the quiet connectors, linking the hidden world below with the visible life above. Lakes are inland bodies of standing water formed by glacial activity, tectonic movements, volcanic craters, or river flow blockages. They act as reservoirs of biodiversity, supporting fish, birds, amphibians, and countless invertebrates. Lakes moderate local climates, absorbing heat in summer and releasing it in winter. They also store fresh water, sometimes for decades or centuries, providing stability in times of drought. Seasonal mixing of lake waters redistributes oxygen and nutrients, supporting healthy ecosystems from the surface to the depths. In many regions, lakes are integral to human life, offering drinking water, transportation routes, and recreational spaces. Their sediment layers record environmental history, preserving clues about past climates, vegetation, and even volcanic eruptions. Lakes connect to the broader hydrological cycle through inflowing rivers, groundwater exchange, and evaporation. When stable, they act as buffers, supporting both natural and human communities for generations. But they are sensitive to nutrient overload, pollution, and climate shifts. In the larger habitability framework, lakes are calm centers in the planetary water network, pockets of stability that both store and circulate life's most essential resource. Reservoirs are human-made lakes, created by damming rivers to store water for drinking, irrigation, flood control, and electricity generation. While artificial, they can function much like natural lakes, supporting fish and wildlife, moderating flow downstream, and creating recreational areas. Reservoirs also provide reliable water supply in dry seasons and act as emergency buffers during droughts. Their role in energy generation through hydropower links them directly to modern habitability, enabling cities and industries to function. However, they also alter natural river ecosystems, changing sediment flow, water temperature, and migration routes for fish. Over time, sediment accumulation can reduce their storage capacity. Yet when managed carefully, reservoirs extend the reach of water resources across time and space, smoothing out the variability of rainfall and river flow. They are engineered stability, part of humanity's effort to control and adapt to the natural water cycle, and a reminder that our own constructions become part of the planet's broader system. Rivers are dynamic arteries of the planet, carrying water, nutrients, and sediments from mountains to seas. Along their journey, they shape valleys, carve canyons, and deposit fertile soils in floodplains. Rivers support a wide range of habitats, fast-flowing mountain streams, meandering lowland channels, and sprawling deltas, each with its own community of plants and animals. They connect ecosystems across vast distances, enabling species to migrate and genetic diversity to spread. For humans, rivers have been lifelines for millennia, providing water, transportation, and power. Their seasonal flows influence agriculture, fisheries, and settlement patterns. The constant motion of rivers distributes heat and moisture through landscapes, linking highland snowmelt to coastal estuaries. They are both sculptors and connectors, shaping landforms while tying together the planet's hydrological and ecological systems. In the habitability equation, rivers are the moving threads that weave Earth's environments into a continuous fabric of life. Estuaries form where rivers meet the sea, creating zones where fresh and salt water mix. This blending produces gradients in salinity, temperature, and nutrients that support diverse and highly productive ecosystems. Estuaries act as nurseries for many marine species, providing shelter and abundant food for juvenile fish, crustaceans, and birds. The tidal flow brings a constant exchange of water, flushing out waste and replenishing oxygen. Estuaries also filter pollutants, trapping sediments and absorbing excess nutrients before they reach the open ocean. Human settlements often thrive near estuaries due to their fertile soils, sheltered harbors, and rich fisheries. However, their productivity depends on a delicate balance of river flow, tidal patterns, and sediment supply. Disruption in any of these can reduce biodiversity and stability. In the global system, estuaries are gateways, transition zones that connect land and sea while buffering both from extremes, making them critical hubs in the network of habitability. Mangrove forests occupy tropical and subtropical coastlines where salt-tolerant trees root themselves in intertidal zones. Their dense, tangled roots trap sediments, build land, and protect shorelines from erosion and storm surges. Mangroves create calm, nutrient-rich waters that serve as nurseries for fish, crabs, and shrimp. Above the waterline, they provide habitat for birds, insects, and mammals. Mangroves also store large amounts of carbon in both their biomass and the soils beneath them, making them important climate regulators. Their unique position between land and sea allows them to filter pollutants and improve water quality. Despite thriving in harsh conditions of salt, heat, and flooding, mangroves are vulnerable to deforestation and coastal development. In the larger picture of habitability, mangroves are coastal engineers, self-sustaining systems that protect land, nurture marine life, and help stabilize the climate, all while adapting to the rise and fall of tides. Salt marshes occur in temperate coastal zones where grassy vegetation grows in saline or brackish water. They flood and drain with the tides, creating alternating conditions that support unique plant and animal life. Salt marshes act as filters, trapping sediments and absorbing nutrients that would otherwise cloud coastal waters. They also buffer inland areas from storms and erosion by absorbing wave energy. The muddy soils of salt marshes store significant amounts of carbon over long periods, contributing to climate regulation. These ecosystems provide breeding and feeding grounds for fish, shellfish, and migratory birds. Their health depends on a balance of tidal flow, sediment supply, and vegetation cover. If disrupted, marshes can erode quickly, losing their ability to protect coastlines. As transitional habitats, salt marshes link marine and terrestrial systems, reinforcing the stability and productivity of both. They are quiet, resilient guardians of coastal habitability. Seagrass meadows grow in shallow, sunlit coastal waters, forming dense underwater fields that stabilize sediments and slow wave action. They provide habitat and feeding grounds for fish, sea turtles, manatees, and countless invertebrates. Seagrass beds are highly productive, capturing carbon at rates comparable to forests and storing it in the sediments below. They also improve water clarity by trapping particles and recycling nutrients. Many commercially important fish and shellfish species depend on seagrass meadows during part of their life cycles. The health of seagrass ecosystems is linked to water quality, light availability, and stable sediment conditions. Pollution, dredging, and warming seas can lead to rapid decline. In the global system, seagrass meadows are hidden but vital contributors, providing food, habitat, and climate regulation while anchoring the base of coastal food webs. Their quiet persistence adds a layer of resilience to marine and human communities alike. Open oceans cover more than 70% of Earth's surface, forming the largest continuous habitat on the planet. These waters are vast and seemingly empty, yet they teem with life. From microscopic plankton to the largest animals ever known, like blue whales, ocean currents act as a planetary conveyor belt, moving heat, nutrients, and organisms across thousands of kilometers. This circulation regulates climate, distributing warmth from the equator toward the poles and influencing weather patterns far inland. The open ocean also absorbs significant amounts of carbon dioxide, buffering the atmosphere against rapid change. While productivity is lower per square meter than coastal waters, the sheer scale of the open ocean means it supports immense biomass and biodiversity. Migratory species like tuna, turtles, and whales depend on these waters as highways between feeding and breeding grounds. The stability of the open ocean relies on temperature gradients, nutrient upwelling, and intact food chains. Disrupt any of these, and entire planetary systems feel the ripple effects. In the grand picture of habitability, the open ocean is both a climate regulator and a life support system, connecting all marine and coastal ecosystems into one global network. Deep oceans, lying beneath the sunlit surface layers, are among Earth's least explored regions. Pressures here are immense, temperatures near freezing, and sunlight absent, but life still flourishes. Chemosynthetic bacteria form the base of food webs around hydrothermal vents, where mineral-rich water gushes from the seafloor. These vents host unique communities, giant tube worms, vent crabs, and strange fish that survive entirely without photosynthesis. The deep ocean also stores vast amounts of heat and carbon, acting as a long-term climate buffer. It plays a role in nutrient recycling as sinking organic matter feeds bottom-dwelling organisms before being broken down and returned to the surface via upwelling currents. Many species here are adapted to extreme stability, with life cycles that can span decades or even centuries. Disturbances in deep ocean circulation could alter climate and nutrient flows worldwide. The deep sea is Earth's hidden reservoir of resilience, operating silently beneath the waves yet influencing every ecosystem above. The planet's interconnected systems, from mountains to oceans, forests to deserts, form a finely tuned web that sustains life. Each component, whether visible like rivers or hidden like aquifers, contributes to stability in its own way. Energy from the sun drives climate and weather, water cycles link every habitat, and living organisms continually reshape their surroundings to maintain balance. Over geological time, Earth has endured massive changes, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, yet the interplay between these systems has allowed life to persist and evolve. Habitability is not a fixed state, it is the product of constant adjustment, feedback, and resilience. In this view, the planet is less a static home and more a living, adaptive network. Whether one sees this as the outcome of natural processes or intentional design, the result is the same, a world where countless factors align to make complex life possible. Our role within it is not just to observe, but to recognize the fragility of this balance and to decide how we will contribute to keeping it intact for the future.